All right. Well, welcome everybody to this meeting of the Sunnyvale Democratic Club. We're going to get started right away here. In 1 second. Okay, and let me. Okay, yeah, if everybody can take their seat. Turn off my speaker. Okay, here we go. All right. Welcome everybody to the Sunnyvale Democratic Club. People are still coming in, but we have a number of candidates to hear from today. So you can see the, hopefully, you can see the agenda, which is a pretty straightforward agenda. So, and that state Senate District 10 candidate interviews, not 10 candidate interviews. And following that, we'll have discussion and endorsement votes. Martin, do you want to explain the process quickly?
The very abbreviated version is there are 5 Democratic candidates for the state Senate seat. There is one Republican candidate, Linda Price, who we did not ask to come here because we would just boo her out of the building. Okay, so balloting is actually open now. There are QR codes. There are QR codes in the corner of the room there, and I assume the link will be distributed online. However, we suggest that you do not, in fact, we suggest that you don't cast your ballot until you hear from all the candidates and we discuss. But like if you desperately have to leave early, the first ballot is open. So we're going to hear from all the candidates one at a time. They have all been provided with the questions in advance, and we will. And they've also submitted responses to written questions, which have been sent out to the club. After we interview all of them, which will take most of the meeting, we will then have a private club members only discussion of what we heard, what we think about the candidates, and then we will vote. A candidate will need 60% of the votes to get our endorsement. We will eliminate down if nobody gets 60% on the first ballot. We'll start eliminating candidates to see if we can get to somebody to 60%. If we eliminate down to 2 candidates and still nobody gets 60%, we'll have a dual endorsement vote to potentially dual endorse the 2 highest vote getting candidates. That vote also requires 60%. I'm not inclined to actually entertain questions on this now because we need to hear from all the candidates. If you have questions about the process, please. We will deal with that when we get to that part. So we're going to do endorsement interviews, and I'm just going to say that these are one candidate at a time. If you are a candidate and you get here early, please hide outside or something while we're interviewing the other candidates.
Right. So I think what Martin is saying is that while...
What I'm saying is, hi, David.
Yeah. While a particular candidate is being interviewed, the candidate and any paid staff members or family members cannot be in the room at the same time. So, and just quickly, now we'll talk about this later. No King's protest is next week, and we'll give that a discussion later. This, for people who don't know it, is a picture of this state's Senate district that we're talking about today. It is quite a district, and we're just down here in the bottom corner. So, and of course, the reason we're doing a lot of this today is the current incumbent Aisha Wahab is running for Eric Swalwell's congressional seat while he runs for governor. So this is an open seat now. So, and this is the order we're going to talk to people in, and the timing, we're already late, so.
Just as a note, this was random. I just went to random.org and put the candidates in the list, and this is and this is the result I got.
All right, so with no further ado, can Ann Kepner, can you come on up and have a seat? Okay, we may want to
fell into that chair.
I don't know if we need to back down that microphone a little bit, or you can just hold it.
I'll just hold it.
Okay.
That's not too loud, is it? Or loud enough?
I think it's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay. And Martin, it has a timer over there. Can you see that?
It's a little
I
hard to
can't
see
it.
just because there's glare.
Yeah,
I don't
there's
know
glare.
if sitting over here might be better.
Yeah, you can sit over here.
Yeah. Thanks, Martin. There we go. It's good to be first. Work out the kinks.
All right, so each candidate will be asked the same questions and have the same time limit. 2.5 minutes per question to respond, as well as a 1-minute opening statement and a 2-minute closing statement. So go ahead and start with your opening statement.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Ann Kepner. I'm a resident of the city of Santa Clara and have been for nearly 30 years. I grew up in West San Jose, attended public schools here from kindergarten through law school, graduated from law school in 1995. I'm a practicing lawyer. I'm in my 31st year of lawyering in San Jose. In a small firm, I represent individuals who are harmed in a variety of ways: toxic tort exposures, workplace injuries, elder abuse. I'm also a mother of 3. My husband and I were having some struggles getting pregnant, so we were in the process to adopt our daughter from Colombia, and I got pregnant with twins. So 3 kids in 6 weeks. And my involvement in politics and the reason I want to continue to stay active in local government and now state government is because of my concern for our families and our children, which has led me to be on the West Valley Mission Community College District for the past 12 years.
Okay, first question. What do you think are the most pressing issues for Sunnyvale and Santa Clara County, and what do you intend to do about them? How do you plan to support your constituents in Sunnyvale and Santa Clara County?
So I feel as I think many of us recognize, one of the things is the affordability and the cost of living in this region. My daughter, who's 30, just moved out of the state of California because she does not see a future here for her. And that hit me hard. So when I was making the decision about whether or not to run for state senate was about the time she was moving out of the state of California. I want to be part of the solution. I'm fearful for our youth. I'm fearful for the aging population. We're getting the silver tsunami is started. It's here. My work has been in protecting people who are harmed, unfortunately, due to a variety of different ways: physical neglect in institutions, financial abuse. We need to take care of our most vulnerable. So I think we need to, housing, which I know one of the questions that you're going to ask is about that, so I won't spend too much time now, but we need to increase the number of housing units that we have in the Bay Area and Sunnyvale throughout the state of California. We need to prepare our youth for good paying jobs. I have been an ally of labor for the past 12 years in my role as a trustee, and I will continue that. I was recently endorsed by the California Labor Federation, received their sole endorsement. We need to invest in our youth. We need to invest in the people who are working in our communities, Sunnyvale included. We need to, access to healthcare is another very significant issue. I studied healthcare management at San Jose State before going to law school. I have grave concerns about what's going to happen with HR 1, again, with the aging population. So we need to continue to work to educate people to work in these fields. We have a dire shortage of nurses, of doctors. in-home healthcare services. I believe people should have the option to age in place if that's possible. My mother died in her home in West San Jose because our family could afford it. Not everybody can. We need to find ways to support families so that their elderly can age in place. Those are priorities, and it really comes back to preparing the workforce, which we don't currently have. And I think the community college system is a fabulous way to do that. There's 116 community colleges throughout California. We currently educate 2 million students, and we have opportunities to leverage those relationships.
Okay. Second question, California and the Bay Area continue to struggle with a homelessness crisis. What should the state do to address the problem? How should encampments be handled? And do you support housing first policies?
So we need, as I mentioned, we need more housing. We need a variety of different types of housing. I have a very close friend and who's really working with me on this campaign as an advisor because she does affordable housing for Eden Housing. And I think the models that seem to be working the best are ones that the population that's living in these housing, the affordable housing units, are diversified populations. There clearly are people who are on the streets, who have mental illness, who have addiction issues, and simply by housing them does not solve those problems. Addiction is a disease. I'm a firm believer in that. And we need to find ways to better support people who are addicted, whether it to be alcohol or drugs. Simply putting them in a home isn't the solution. That's part of it, but that's not the solution. And so the experience has been when you simply occupy newly or affordable housing with simply people who don't have housing, who have addiction issues, you aren't requiring that there be some requirement of sobriety, let's say, or at least attempts to get sober, is that really is not leading to successful long-term living solutions, which is where we need to be. That's what our goal needs to be. So we need treatment programs. We need more treatment programs. Treatment is not easy. It's not cheap. It takes time, but that is a population that desperately needs our help. Otherwise, they end up incarcerated, and that's a whole nother expense that our society is bearing right now. So given my experience in public health, given some of my family experiences with addiction, this is something that is of great importance to me, that I will advocate for greater support for people who have the illness of addiction. And I'm going to say that there. We need to find transitional housing, but we've got to find long-term solutions. Simply putting people in transitional housing isn't the solution. We're seeing evidence of that in the city of San Jose right now. It's not working. So I'm also, we have a lot of housing insecure students in the community college system. This is something that we're grappling with at West Valley Mission. We are just now entering into a partnership with San Jose State so that we can actually house community college students at San Jose State. It's a pilot program. We're excited about it. We need to do more collaboration like that to find solutions for all people.
Okay, third question. California and the Bay Area continue to face a severe housing shortage. Hundreds of housing bills have been passed. Have these bills increased the supply of housing? Can we increase housing without killing neighborhood retail, especially in low opportunity areas?
So yes, there's been a lot of bills. Yes, there has been some housing that has been built. I think one of the areas that we're not addressing well is the missing middle, as they say. So I think we need to continue to create incentives for home building that isn't just for the lowest of the economically situated, but also for the kind of missing middle, as it is referred to. So we need to continue the efforts of streamlining the process, of reducing the barriers to and the costs that go along with building. I know that companies, nonprofits like Eden Housing have been working well with cities and other governmental agencies to take advantage of tax credits, to build units, and we need to continue and support that at a higher level. I also think, as I was starting to mention with West Valley Mission Community College District, the community college system in California, there had been $1 billion set aside for us to build, and all of that was taken away last 2 cycles ago. And so we were making some inroads there. Again, we have 2.2 million students that we're educating, and approximately 50% of those students are housing insecure. There are some of our most vulnerable, and yet they're our future. So I think we need to look at ways to incentivize districts like ours, institutions like San Jose State University, to enter into partnerships like we are now doing, because I think we've got to find ways to not only educate our students, but to remove the barriers that prevent them from succeeding in education, which is housing insecurity and food insecurity, et cetera. I feel like I've lost my way in this question. I wish I had all the answers to these difficult problems, right? Yeah. So I think there's a lot of effort that has been made to eliminate a lot of the barriers, but we've got, which are the costs, et cetera, and we've got to continue to stay the course with that so that we have more inventory. We just need more inventory throughout California.
All right, thank you. Fourth question. What steps should the state be taking to protect vulnerable residents from federal depredations and overreach, including violations of civil liberties, unlawful ICE enforcement, and the federal government failing to appropriately fund disaster aid, food assistance, health insurance, and housing assistance?
I'm so grateful that we are in the state of California, where efforts are being made, where local agencies, local governments, state government have taken a strong stand against the federal efforts to demonize many of our community members. One of the things, I've been very active in a nonprofit Mission City Community Fund that provides grants. We raise money and provide grants to nonprofits. And in that role, what we've come to realize is HR 1 has actually disincentivized corporations from donating to nonprofits. Corporations don't get a tax deduction now until they donate at least 1% of their profits. For the small corporation, that's very doable. For the large corporation, that really disincentivizes them from donating. So a lot of agencies are really struggling now. And I have been a volunteer in the nonprofit sector for years with the YMCA, things associated with the schools, Mission City Community Fund, et cetera. I think some of the nonprofit agencies that are based here in Sunnyvale, that are in our cities, in our county, are almost best equipped to respond to the needs of the people in their community, and able to pivot, able to organize, able to address concerns at the local level. I know what Mission City Community Fund did in partnership with corporations when the pandemic hit and our senior center closed and lunches weren't being provided. We pivoted quickly. And I think the state can do more to incentivize corporations to donate and donate to nonprofits. I don't think we maximize the incredible resource that each of our communities has in the nonprofit sector. So I see that as an area that we could spend more energy, more resource. It's going to take some, analysis, et cetera. But I think we've got an opportunity to do better so that we've got our local organizations positioned, supported, resourced, so that when the federal government comes in, ICE shows up, they're prepared. Right? Organizations like Siren and others that are training their volunteers, expanding their volunteer base. We at the state level need to support those efforts better.
And the final question, name one big idea you have for reaching our goal of achieving carbon neutrality by 2045, or hopefully earlier. Why would your idea help, and how would you get it passed?
Short of teleporting.
Exactly.
The one thing I've been thinking a lot about is we need to get people out of their cars and into mass transportation. So much easier to say than do. One of the advantages of my daughter leaving the state is she's moved to downtown Portland, Oregon. She got rid of her car, her boyfriend got rid of his car, and they are now depending on public transportation and doing it quite well. So there's an example of he's 28, she's 30, they're nimble, they're not loyal to their cars the way that many of us are. And I think we need to begin with our youth, and whether it's, taking advantage of the Clipper Pass, it's supporting the regional bond that's coming for the transportation, enhancing our transportation system. At West Valley Mission, we are working to see if we can't get access, give access to our students to the Clipper Pass that connects all 24 transit agencies, right? So you can ride those agencies, all of those systems with one pass. And if it's subsidized and we encourage our students to use it, they're going to grow those muscles. So I really think we need to look at how to make this a way of living for the youth. It wouldn't be popular with school district employees and school bus drivers. I'm looking at Jody Muirhead, but what if we use the public transportation system to move people to and from schools? What if that's what you did as a young person? It becomes a way of life. So I think that's probably the most effective way. And I know here in Sunnyvale, you've worked really, done a lot of work around increasing bicycle safety. And we've got again, in Portland, Oregon, I have a son in Portland. They're riding their bikes a lot of places. I have a son at UC Santa Barbara, and we pulled up to pick him up for spring break, and there were bikes parked everywhere. It's a way of life in certain places because it's encouraged, it's supported, it's safe, and we can do so much better. So I think we've got to look at ways to get people out of their cars and either into public transportation, walking, biking. I did miss a question about retail. I think if we also... That's that teleporting. I think if we build our communities so that you can access what you need on foot and on bike, that will make a large difference too. So we have to think very strategically about how we're building out our spaces and communities.
Okay, and now that's the end of those questions. So you have a 2-minute closing statement to cover anything that we didn't cover in our questions.
So I just want to thank you for taking your time on a Saturday afternoon. One thing I've noticed, I ran for the assembly in 2020, and there were 9 of us looking to fill can't and choose vacant spots, similar to what's happened here, although we only have 6. So the field feels quite small to me this time. We had 1 Republican and 8 Democrats in 2020, and I came in 3rd in the primary, so I didn't go on to the general. What I'm experiencing in Sacramento is different this time, and I want to convey this message. There is a sense of urgency in Sacramento that I did not experience last time. People seem to be quicker to make decisions about getting involved in races, endorsing. I've had the good fortune of being endorsed by a number of our local legislators, Aisha Wahab, Gail Pellerin, Liz Ortega, Mia Bonta, who are all in the assembly, along with Senator Dave Cortese. They're coming off the sidelines in these races a lot quicker than they did last time, because I think people recognize that the house is on fire, right? The world is on fire right now, and we need to step up and we need to find solutions. We need to work together. We need to come across the various lines that we find ourselves kind of isolated within, and we need to find solutions. So as an example, universal health care. This is something that Assemblymember Aisha Wahab has been championing with CNA, with the California Nurses Association, for years. He's got 2 years left in the state assembly, and then he's going to walk out the door. CNA is very determined to move that issue forward, at least to a certain degree. I don't think we can get there completely. I think I responded to that in the questionnaire. However, he wants partners present. He wants people that are going to be in the legislature willing to work to find solutions to these big issues. And that's what I plan to do, is to work with others. So I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be in the position that I'm in. I would be blessed to have your support. I really believe firmly in our community and want to do best by all of you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. And well, yeah, I know. Yeah, we'll transition to our next candidate. And Martin, is that David? Okay. I don't have the Yeah, have a seat. We want everybody to be comfortable. So.
Yeah, this is great. I like the room. I might be able to get out of it again. Okay.
All right. So as we mentioned before, we asked the same 5 questions of all the candidates, and you have a 1-minute opening statement and then a 2-minute closing statement. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me here today. My name is David Cohen. I currently serve on the San Jose City Council in my 2nd term after having been reelected in 2024. Prior to that, I served 14 years on the Bay Area School Board and also worked in tech, worked in North San Jose and in Fremont. I know the industry well and the economy that drives our district. As a school board member and as a council member, I've been about building relationships, bringing people together to solve problems. We've worked on many big issues in San Jose. I've decided, I hesitated about running for this seat, never really thought it was going to be open this year because I love local government. I think we have a lot of impact locally. But in times that we're in right now, where the federal government has abdicated its responsibility to take care of our citizens, to address big issues such as affordability and healthcare and housing, there's a real opportunity to go to the state and do some real legislative work that I think will improve all of our communities. And I'm excited about the opportunity. Okay,
first question. What do you think are the most pressing issues for Sunnyvale and Santa Clara County? And what do you intend to do about them? How do you plan to support your constituents in Sunnyvale and Santa Clara County?
Okay, so the biggest issue I think is pretty common across the entire state. I think the biggest issue in the state is affordability. The ability for people to be able to live, to afford healthcare, to afford childcare, to afford the day-to-day needs. So we need to address those issues at the state level by providing resources and aligning on common goals, but we need to do it in cooperation with our local cities and counties. That's why I'm interested in creating legislation that will align the activities of counties and cities in the state, so we all know what lanes we're in, what kind of work we all have to do to be cooperative and collaborative to solve these issues. Make sure that we're not fighting over resources, but using resources in an aligned way that actually helps us get to our goals. Certainly, this district is very diverse. We have cities all the way from Hayward to Sunnyvale, and my objective is to be visible and active in all parts of that district, as I've been as a school board member, as a city council member. Being available to the residents of the city, being in touch with the elected officials in the city so I understand what the city's needs are, and being there as a resource at the state level. I know some of the questions later on, and we'll be talking about more specifics about what we're going to do on affordability and housing, so I won't get into some of those. But besides housing, right now we have a crisis in healthcare because of the federal government cuts from HR 1, and we are going to have to work as a state to backstop those cuts and make sure that our hospitals, whether they're rural hospitals or urban hospitals, are going to survive. I was just up in Union City at their health center, which is their health center that provides service almost entirely to Medi-Cal patients, uninsured patients, and they're worried about how they're going to be able to survive what's coming. While we can help our county hospital system, a lot of these local providers are not county hospitals. They're not large systems. They are these local health centers that are going to be struggling, that are providing help for our most at need and at risk residents. And they're going to have to be cutting services. They're going to have less available to them because they're not going to be paid for the work that they're doing because Medi-Cal cuts are so severe. They're also facing a change at the state where they're being told that if you treat an undocumented resident, you'll no longer get reimbursed for it. I oppose that. We have to make sure that that doesn't happen because no matter who walks into the door of one of these health centers, they should get care.
So California and the Bay Area continue to struggle with a homelessness crisis. What should the state do to address this problem? How should encampments be handled? And do you support housing first policies?
Okay, so there's a lot that the state has to do to help local governments deal with this issue. You know, many of our local governments have been doing a lot to build interim housing, to try to get people compassionate ways off the streets. Encampments are a tough issue because clearly neighborhoods are impacted by encampments, but we have to be compassionate and offer shelter for people. Short-term shelter is important. We need it. long-term housing is the most important. At the state level, we're going to have to offer incentives to get housing built. We're going to have to provide. Actually, I'll start by saying the most impactful thing we can do at any level of government is prevention. So we know that when we put small, modest amounts of money into helping people stay in their homes and pay their rent, it's about 95% effective in keeping them in their homes. As a city of San Jose, we've invested a significant amount of money every year in that, and we've continued to fight to make sure that that remains in the budget. The state has to step up and provide some money for that as well. In addition, cities have been asking the state to be consistent funder of what's known as HAP, HHAP, the homelessness and housing program from the state. The state had committed $1 billion to that program, but cut it back this past year. And if we don't have a stable source of funding that local government can count on, we can't build to capacity and keep those programs open. So we're going to have to make sure that as a state, we continue to provide $1 billion a year at minimum of HAP funding. In addition, the state is, I know there's some talk in the state about a statewide housing bond. We're gonna need to provide state money to build affordable housing across the state. That will help us on that long-term permanent housing side of things, which is, we know, is the ultimate destination of many of the folks who are currently homeless. So those are the main things that the state can do to help local governments deal with the homeless issue.
So kind of continuing in the vein of housing, California, the Bay Area continue to face a severe housing shortage. Hundreds of housing bills have been passed. Have these bills increased the supply of housing? Can we increase housing without killing neighborhood retail, especially in low opportunity areas?
Yeah, so I've had this conversation with Senator Wiener's office actually just this year. We have to give bills time to work before assuming that they're not working and passing more legislation. The state continually every year says, well, we tried this and it didn't work, so we're going to try something else. Housing construction takes years. It's not something that happens overnight. The other thing that it's important for the state to remember is that it's not cities that build housing. Cities own land. Cities are supposed to permit the housing, but developers have to build the housing. And without resources and help in a high cost environment right now, developers are having trouble. So the state should be there to provide loans for housing developers to make sure that they can build housing locally. The state should also stop building throwing out one-size-fits-all solutions for the entire state. I serve on the League of Cities board. I've been there for 5 years. And as a member of the board, there's 483 cities in the state of California. And I've come to learn about the differences in how those cities operate and what their needs are. For example, a city in the desert in Kern County or San Bernardino County has very different needs and very different outcomes than a coastal city in San Luis Obispo County or than Sunnyvale. The state needs to understand what their impacts are. And I think that it is better to pass legislation that provides a menu of options for cities to achieve their goals rather than a one-size-fits-all approach. So that's what I'll be focused on, is understanding how what the state is doing impacts local government and gets in the way sometimes and doesn't actually help. Now, as far as ground floor retail on housing, in the places where it works, it should be allowed to continue. The state shouldn't preempt that where housing is getting built. Now, there's places that are using requirements such as ground floor retail to block housing because housing developers can't afford to build the ground floor retail. So the state does have to hold those cities accountable as well. So we have to make sure we have measures in place to determine what cities are being successful and therefore can be given the option to have different kinds of zoning requirements than other cities. I know in San Jose, we have dropped the requirement for ground floor retail in a lot of our housing because we found that much of that ground floor retail remains vacant, ends up being a money loser for developers, and developers can't come in and build more housing. But it should be a local decision that can be made about what works in your own community.
All right, next question. What steps should the state be taking to protect vulnerable residents from federal depredations and overreach, including violations of civil liberties, unlawful ICE enforcement, and the federal government failing to appropriately fund disaster aid, food assistance, health insurance, and housing assistance?
Well, first I'll talk about what I've done in the past on this issue. When I was president of the school board in 2016, right after Trump was elected the first time, I saw how our families were reacting and how they were scared about what would happen at school when they dropped their kids off. So I wrote the first resolution in Northern California, brought to a school board declaring that our school district will be a safe place and that families should not be scared to drop your kids off, that we wouldn't cooperate with ICE, and that we will not share information about your children with the federal government. We also, as the city of San Jose, have put in place the first sets of laws banning face masking, making sure that police officers know, or anybody who claims to be a police officer, should be carrying ID at all times, and that we made sure that our publicly owned properties were not going to be used for staging ICE activities. These are things that the state has replicated and that we have to continue to push for at the state level to make sure people are protected. If people come into our state, and I'll say my daughter lives in Minneapolis and was marching on the streets and saw what was happening around the neighborhoods, people she knows were pulled over just for driving down the street and being checked. It was a pretty scary time. And what we saw there, I have no doubt could happen here. And when it happens here, we have to be prepared to hold people accountable. Our state attorney general, our local DAs have to be prepared to charge people for the behavior when it's illegal in California, regardless of what the federal government says about it and how they circle ranks. So we need to be strong on that in that regard. As far as funding, one of the worst things that I've been witnessing is the fact that the legislative branch of our federal government has decided to completely give up their power and allows a president to take previously appropriated money and just not send it to cities. On the small scale, we've had grants for urban wildfire areas that we had gotten from the federal government to help make our hills safer from fire, just taken away because the word environment was somewhere inside that grant. We have stood up in the city, and I know many cities have, and the state has, to sue the Trump administration and make sure that money that was appropriated by Congress goes to the places it's supposed to go. And we have to continue to stand up for that and continue to make sure people understand. Because I think another piece is that the public doesn't understand what's happening. I hear from people, why do we need the federal government to come in and bail us out? It's our tax money that the federal government is not sending back to us, and people need to be taught that.
All right. And next question. Name one big idea you have for reaching our goal of achieving carbon neutrality by 2045 or hopefully earlier. Why would your idea help, and how would you get it passed?
Okay, well, people who know me and my priorities know that the environment and climate is always in my top three. And I tell people it's in my top three because for most candidates running for office, it's not. Most people will leave it out because they're told by a consultant that's not something people care about, or because they genuinely are not elevating it as a priority. But I always make sure I list it in my top three. And when I went to the League of Cities, and the League of Cities was trying to create state priorities for their legislative action, I stood up and said, we have to make sure climate is in here. And they said, we have to narrow it down to three. And here's 5 choices, of which climate is one. And I said, well, I see what's going to happen. Climate will finish 4th and it won't get on the list. So we were able to preserve climate and make sure that climate is now a priority of the State League of Cities. Having said that, the state needs to step up and help cities electrify buildings, because we're doing a lot of work on transportation. We have to continue to adopt EVs and build out charging infrastructure. But existing building stock is a big emitter of carbon, and we have to work on converting from fossil fuel sources of heat and energy to electrified energy. And so what we know is that people are worried and fearful about what that might mean for their costs, although we know that costs have come down and that the savings of doing electrified heating and air conditioning actually is lower. The state needs to continue to offer rebates. The other piece, though, that I think is a really big idea is working with our utility companies to decommission portions of our natural gas grid. So I've been talking to PG&E about this. There's an interest in having demonstration neighborhoods step up and say, we will cap off the natural gas in our neighborhood, and then PG&E and the state will help this neighborhood electrify their existing appliances, and it will accelerate this process, and it will actually give demonstration areas to prove it's doable and what the benefits are. In addition to that, there's state legislation that can be passed to convert our existing natural gas infrastructure to thermal heat infrastructure. And many utilities around the country are interested in doing that if the state will help them do that. So that's another piece that I'm talking to some national advocacy groups about, is how we can convert our fossil fuel delivery systems to other forms of energy delivery.
All right. So you have a 2-minute closing statement now.
All right, thank you. And I'll just say that in finishing up on that last point, my focus on climate and energy is why Josh Becker and other environmental champions are supporting my campaign. It's why in 2024, I was named Legislator of the Year by the Santa Clara County League of Conservation Voters, because I've been working so much on this issue. But thank you for the opportunity to share some of my thoughts with you today. As I said at the beginning, getting things done in government is about relationships. It's about who you know and how much they trust you. And I've spent my years in public office building that level of trust. As a school board member in the Bay Area School District, I went weekly every year for 13 years and had lunch at a different school, sitting with staff, talking to teachers, meeting with the administration, seeing classrooms in action. It gave me a perspective of what's happening on the ground and opened up a line of communication between the staff and the district to help them understand what the challenges were from the district and help us understand what the challenges were on site. I learned, so our district was one of 7 school districts that fed into the East Side High School district. Those districts weren't talking to each other. They had no cooperative agreement between those districts. So I got together with a board member from the East Side High School district, and the two of us said, let's create an umbrella group of board members who are going to bring our districts together. Superintendents said to us, uh-oh, we don't want this. We don't want this extra work. We don't want you to do that. But we said, we're going to do it anyway. And a few months after we did it, the superintendent said, we better start meeting with each other in order to make sure that we don't have this group of rogue school board members tell us what to do. And the result was the creation of what is now known as the East Side Alliance. I'm very proud of the genesis of the East Side Alliance that has now built a cooperative relationship between the 8 districts and East San Jose and has improved articulation of curriculum from elementary to high school, was because of some work that I did with some colleagues on the school board. And that's the kind of role that I'll take when I'm in the state. It's what I've done in the city and what I hope to do with all of you as community members in the district.
All right. Thank you, David. Thanks for coming down and talking to us.
Thank you so much.
This will be, are you on the course setting? Raymond, have a seat. Here's the microphone. All right. We'll get the camera on you.
Oh, okay, but yeah, that's a lot better.
We're just getting the camera pointed at the candidate. This high-tech stuff we have here, it's fantastic. Good. Maybe I could just grab it and point it.
Is that?
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Yeah. And highlight him. Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. And I'll just point out that the arrangement of this is confusing because when we're looking at each other, it looks like we're both looking away. But, don't mind that. All right. So welcome. So as you know, you've been sent the questions and you will have 2.5 minutes per question, 5 questions, as well as a 1-minute opening statement and a 2-minute closing statement. And also, before we start, I wanted to remind people that there were also written questions that were sent to candidates, and the candidate written responses, if you haven't looked at them, are available from our website or the email that Ambrosia sent out at various ways to access that. So you may want to look at that while we're going through this process because we couldn't fit all the questions we wanted to ask in this time period. So, all right, go ahead and start with your 1-minute opening statement.
Well, hello, everybody. First off, I want to thank everybody for inviting me here and giving me the chance to speak with you all. My name is Raymond Liu, and I'm running for California State Senate District 10. I'm currently proud to be serving as the youngest ever council member in my hometown of Fremont. I'm running for state senate because I believe that California right now, we are on a turning point. The status quo simply isn't working for many of our working families all across the state. I believe that we need a new generation of leadership, somebody who's ready to tackle our biggest challenges with urgency, accountability, and a proven track record. Over my past year on city council, I've overseen the development of over 500 units of affordable housing in our city. I've overseen expanded public Wi-Fi access to residents in our city. I've overseen the transition of our resident homes into 100% renewable electricity last year in 2025. With this year, our businesses do the same. I've done all that by making sure that we have a well-balanced budget with no deficits. Thank you.
All right, first question. What do you think are the most pressing issues for Sunnyvale and Santa Clara County? And what do you intend to do about them? How do you plan to support your constituents in Sunnyvale and Santa Clara County?
Right. So I think the most pressing issue of our time right now is housing. Housing. The average house in the Bay Area right now costs $1.5 million. And the average age of the first-time home buyer in the United States right now is 40 years old. That means that most people my age, are not able to afford to start a family in the places that they grew up in. That's the major issue that is happening right here all across the Bay Area. And we're starting to see the second order effects of that as well. For example, we've seen many school closures happening in Berryessa over these past couple of years because there are not enough young families moving in to have their kids attending school there. And we're starting to see that, as a sort of a cascading issues. In 2020, California, for the first time ever, lost a congressional seat in the redistricting process because our rate of population growth has been declining compared to all the other states. In 2030, it's projected that California will lose anywhere from 2 to 4 congressional seats. And all those seats are going to Republican-aligned areas such as Texas and Florida. So this has stopped becoming a localized issue where people aren't able to afford homes, but into a national level one with serious national consequences. Now, my issue for dealing with that is we have to build housing. It's that simple, and we have to build housing of all shapes and sorts. We have to build denser housing. I'm proud to say that in Fremont, even though we haven't reached our numbers yet, we are one of the best cities in the Bay Area that are actually close to reaching our numbers. my vision is for California to be able to have denser places, much like other countries all across the world. We need to be able to have denser housing for people to live in. We need to be able to be a place where families can once again be able to live in California. Now, as how I would proceed to meet with constituents here in Sunnyvale and in Santa Clara County about that, even though I'm from Alameda County, I think this is an issue across both counties where housing remains an issue. Right now, there's a 1-2 punch of house prices being high as well as interest rates being high, meaning that most people can't be able to afford a house. I'll be able to work with residents to figure out which sort of more new housing developments best suit the area and for people to be able to once again live in the Bay Area and afford a life here. Thank you.
All right, second question. California and the Bay Area continue to struggle with a homelessness crisis. What should the state do to address this problem? How should encampments be handled? And do you support housing first policies?
Right. So another consequence of the chronic lack of housing is the result of the homelessness crisis we see. Those two are intricately linked to one another. To answer your question, yes, I do support housing first. The number way to get people back on their feet is to get them housed. I'm proud to say that here in Fremont, we have our homeless navigation, which places people at twice the rate of the national average. So here in Fremont, we're already doing more with less. We also have things like our winter relief program, which helps people get housed, as well as we have things such as the overnight parking. It's a place where we work with many of our faith-based organizations in the city of Fremont, and we partner with them to ensure on a rotating basis that people who might be homeless but still own a car or any other sort of vehicle is able to go in at the night and be able to sleep there. And then they leave at 8 a.m. to go with their working jobs that they have. These people, even though they lack homes, they have a job, they have a car, they just simply cannot afford a house that costs $1.5 million in the Bay Area. So that's an easy way to help people. And I would like to see those programs expanded all across California. I think partnering with existing structures is one of the best ways to do this, and I also support building more affordable housing units. I think, as I mentioned before, over the past year, we've built 567 units of affordable houses. Those units are already built. They're done. We have people living in them. We have our community members off the streets and be able to have permanent housing solutions. So I would like to see that all across California. Thank you.
All right, the next question. California and the Bay Area continue to face a severe housing shortage. Hundreds of housing bills have been passed. Have these bills increased the supply of housing? Can we increase housing without killing neighborhood retail, especially in low opportunity areas?
Right. So as you guys can see, housing seems to be the main sort of theme, and I think it should be. So to answer your question, yes, I do think the number of bills passed in California has had an impact on the number of housing. It's increased it, but it hasn't increased it by enough. That's not the problem we have there. It's not the willingness to do things, it's able to make sure we build enough housing. So one of the things I like to see done is density. I want to make a comparison. The nation of Japan, for example, is roughly the same area size as California. They have 4 times the population, yet their houses cost half as much as ours. I think that proves an example that it is possible to build housing that is dense and that is cheap and that is affordable for everybody. They have, like in Japan, they have, Tokyo as their main economic center, while we have 2 places, Los Angeles and San Francisco, right here in the Bay Area, that can support these sort of dense housing units for people to afford. The second question is, I guess you brought up, was mentioned to how housing interacts with our retail spaces. I personally think those two are linked to each other. With more housing, we actually see more economic activity in our neighborhood retail places. As you see here now, a common complaint that I get is in the Bay Area, a lot of the suburban places such as Fremont or Santa Clara, for example, are very, there's not enough food options. There's not enough mom and pop food options to be able to support this populace because the cost of rent is so high. And so we only get these national chains here that are able to serve to a wider palette of options. I think with denser housing, with more people being able to afford living in the Bay Area, you have more options for people to be there, and with more people there, you have a growing consumer base for more entrepreneurs to come in, open up retail shops, whether it be restaurants or small arts and crafts dedicated for people to eat, play, and work in. Thank you.
Next question. What steps should the state be taking to protect vulnerable residents from federal depredations and overreach, including violations of civil liberties, unlawful ICE enforcement, and the federal government failing to appropriately fund disaster aid, food assistance, health insurance, and housing assistance?
So first off, I think what ICE is doing is terrible. It's illegal and it goes against our Constitution. I think ICE, whenever there is a next Democratic administration, ICE should be disbanded. But we're focusing on the state level first. So let's talk about what we can do at the state level. I really liked, the bill that the California legislature recently passed, prohibiting ICE members to wear masks. To wear masks. But unfortunately, as I'm sure you guys all know, that was struck down by the California courts because it was ruled as discriminatory because it only prohibits federal agents and not our state. So I think there's already another bill in the process of prohibiting both federal and state to wear masks to be able to pass it. I think it's important, that we really protect the communities inside the Bay Area. I myself am not an immigrant, but my parents came here in America looking for the American dream. I was raised in Fremont, very diverse places. We have people of different ethnicities, people of different faiths, people of different everything. And I think that's one of the things what makes the Bay Area so great. It's one of the reasons why we're one of the most economically strongest regions in the whole world is because of that diversity. You have people coming in we get the best and brightest of people coming in all across the world. And I want to see that continue. What's happening right now at the federal level of people being driven off the streets, of people being afraid to come out and interact with the community is terrible, and I oppose that on every single level. Thank you.
And finally, name one big idea you have for reaching our goal of achieving carbon neutrality by 2045, or hopefully earlier. Why would your idea help, and how would you get it passed?
So I think one of the main goals to achieve that is what we're already doing here in Fremont, is using 100% renewable electricity for all places across. So what we have there is we have a transition phase. We have first of all in 2024. We transitioned most of our municipal buildings into using 100% renewable electricities. And then last year in 2025, we transitioned all of our residents in Fremont to be using 100% renewable electricities. And this year was all of our businesses inside Fremont doing the same thing. I think I would love to see something like that happen at the statewide and do the same thing. I think as Fremont has shown, it is possible. We were not seeing complaints from residents living in Fremont. In fact, we're seeing the opposite. We're seeing people happy to, provide, and that their big homes or businesses are able to contribute to a cleaner and better environment. And I think that's something we can do all across California. Another reason I would be remiss if I didn't mention that being part of Fremont is EVs. I think EVs are more essential than ever. Gas prices these days, when I was driving here, I saw a local gas price almost close to $6 a gallon. I think it makes more economic sense to, promote EV development across California as a whole, where we should be one of the states that should be the most proudest to do something like that. I think above all, that will, save on greenhouse emissions and making sure we reach net zero carbon by 2045. Thank you.
All right, now you have a 2-minute closing statement.
I just want to say that above all, right now in California, we are at a crisis point. Housing right now has only gone more unaffordable more than ever, and we need to act now before things get even worse. I propose a brand new vision for our state, and I'm the only candidate that is of Gen Z, of the future. I am tired of the status quo, and I know many other people out there who are tired. They tell me that that the only way they can raise a family is to move out of our state into some places like Texas, where they might be discriminated against for their race or their gender or their ethnicity. I think that's a sad, because we're supposed to be the golden state. We're California. We should be the leader in our entire nation, and I aim to change that. We need to have our houses be more dense. We need more people to be able to afford living in California. And above all, we must protect the rights of all people inside our state. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming down and talking to us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you. And next is Scott Sakakihara. Right here. All right. Have a seat. Turn it on. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Great.
All right. And as you know, you'll have 5 questions, 2.5 minutes per question, and a 1-minute opening statement and a 2-minute closing statement. So go ahead with your 1-minute opening statement.
Great. Well, thank you for having me today. I'm actually on Navy orders this past week and this coming week. So in the Navy, we live by this commitment to leave no one behind. And I think we as a community should live by those same words, especially right now. And so I'm running for state senate because I want to build a California where there's opportunity for everyone and where we don't leave anyone behind. And so as a husband and a father raising 3 kids in the community where my wife and I grew up, I have a personal stake in the future of this district. And having 4 grandparents who were sent to Japanese American internment camps during World War II, I have a personal commitment to protecting our immigrant communities, especially from ICE raids and abuse. And as a city council member, I've fought for building affordable housing, securing funding for homelessness services and renter assistance, and fought for fair labor practices and stood up for our immigrant communities. And so I would be honored to earn your support.
All right. First question. What do you think are the most pressing issues for Sunnyvale and Santa Clara County, and what do you intend to do about them? How do you plan to support your constituents in Sunnyvale and Santa Clara County?
Thank you. Yeah, so the reason why I ran for city council in the first place was because I grew up in the city that I now represent and had a lot of friends growing up and in high school who slowly all had to move away. And so most of them don't live in the Bay anymore because of how expensive it is. So housing was my #1 issue. And I know that Sunnyvale and Santa Clara County are not Union City, but we do share the same problem of housing. And now we've seen that expand to affordability more generally, where they're talking childcare. Our 3rd kid is going through childcare now. So we're almost done with all 3, but those expenses are very high now. Healthcare costs, insurance costs, groceries, it's the whole range. And so I think affordability is a huge piece. And I know Sunnyvale and Santa in particular, in addition to needing to build more housing, it's also all the infrastructure that has to do with housing, transit, and climate resiliency too, right? And so I think that one of my top priorities, if I were to be elected, is to improve the housing supply. I know that's a top issue right now in general, but being able to check an all of the above approach, right? So certainly affordable housing, certainly focusing on infill housing, on more density near transit, and then also improving the safety of our streets and our transit infrastructure. And again, the climate resiliency component of it. And so I think the second part of the question was about constituent approach. And I think that needs to be centered, right? So constituent services, operations need to be a primary focus. of a state Senate office or assembly office as well, and not just kind of an afterthought of something that, has to be done, right? That's a key part. And really being out there in the community, both in terms of just showing up, but also being able to work with community members, local elected leaders, and really being accessible and responsive, certainly, but also proactive too, and reaching out to Sunnyvale, to Santa Clara County more generally, right? I've been spending majority of my time in Santa Clara County since I got into this race a couple months ago, just because I know I didn't have a long-term plan to run for state Senate. And so I don't have those relationships pre-existing, but certainly would intend to represent the entire district if I were to be elected.
Thank you. California and the Bay Area continue to struggle with a homelessness crisis. What should the state do to address this problem? And how should encampments be handled? And do you support housing first policies?
Yes. So I definitely support housing first policies. I think when I think of homelessness, the first thing that for me that always comes to mind is that we need to make sure to center the individuals who are actually experiencing homelessness, right? And I think a lot of times you hear, I'm on city council, you hear members of the public talk about a problem like it's a it problem, and it's not a it problem. It's humans who are actually experiencing this. And so everything we do should be centered around that. So certainly housing first, I support, but not housing only, right? So we need to get folks into housing, and then we also need to appropriately fund wraparound services, mental health treatment if needed, substance abuse programs if needed, on the job training programs if needed, right? And the whole suite of services that only really stick if you have housing, but that you also need in addition to housing. So I think that approach is important. I also think, from my experience on council, and I'm also the vice chair of the Housing Authority in Alameda County, I've seen how difficult it is to coordinate across jurisdictions, because homelessness doesn't just stop at the city limits, right? And so you need to coordinate between cities, you need to coordinate with the county, with the mental health system, and certainly at the state level. And so I think we have seen some rhetoric from the state level kind of placing the blame with localities, and then localities pushing back saying, no, it's not our problem. It's not limited to just, our city. I think we all need to take responsibility for it together. And by we, I mean all the different various levels of government and the community as well. And that's the only way we're going to solve this, is with coordination between all of those entities. In terms of, I think there's a part on encampments. I think that, it doesn't help to just move folks from one street to the next blocks. You really have to have a serious and sincere offer of temporary or ideally permanent supportive housing in order for that to be meaningful. And so, yes, we need to prioritize public safety and of both the individuals who are experiencing homelessness and individuals who they may be camping next to. But we also need to do that with dignity and, again, recognizing the humanity that each of them have. So that would be my approach to encampments.
Next question. California and the Bay Area continue to face a severe housing shortage. Hundreds of housing bills have been passed. Have these bills increased the supply of housing? Can we increase housing without killing neighborhood retail, especially in low opportunity areas?
Yes, I think we can increase housing without killing neighborhood retail. I think all of these bills that we've seen pass are a recognition of the problem. I think we're at the tip of at the beginning of the journey in terms of actually seeing the needle move. And I know from serving on city council, and before that I was on the planning commission in Union City, I've seen how difficult it is to build housing. Even when you do have a good partner, we have 2 100% affordable complexes that are finally going to break ground this year, that got started before I even was on planning commission in 2017. And so this is now, at least 9 years that it's been to get some of these off the ground. So it's really challenging. I get that. And so I think some of these bills, certainly the intent of the bills is in the right place. Some of them have unintended consequences. We have to be really thoughtful about it. And I think, we can't take an approach of one size fits all. So what works in San Francisco doesn't necessarily work in Union City, and what works in Union City, where I'm from, doesn't necessarily work in Sunnyvale. And so you want to be thoughtful about having a more individualized approach. And I think that also is how you ensure you do this without driving out local businesses, right? So certainly embracing mixed use retail, ground floor commercial, being able to allow folks to live, work, play all in the same area. And that also helps with with climate as well, right? But knowing that that mix of things as a general principle, the way you apply that to Sunnyvale is going to, again, be different than Hayward or San Jose or anywhere else, right? And I think Union City and Sunnyvale, Sunnyvale is much bigger than Union City, but we do have kind of the same chip on the shoulder, I think, in terms of being next door to a city that's much bigger and understanding that there are, things that may work in larger cities that you want the same, you're going toward the same goal, but you may not have the same exact solutions that are needed to get there. And can you repeat the last part of that question? Was there?
I think you covered it.
I did cover.
It
Okay,
was the
perfect.
retail you covered at the
Okay,
beginning,
perfect.
so.
Thank you.
Next question. What steps should the state be taking to protect vulnerable residents from federal depredations and overreach, including violations of civil liberties, unlawful ICE enforcement, and the federal government failing to appropriately fund disaster aid, food assistance, health insurance, and housing assistance?
Great. Yeah. I mean, I mentioned my family history. My entire family was incarcerated during World War II. And I think, a few decades later, our government did apologize for that. And along with that apology said that we were never going to do this again. And I think that what we're seeing today with ICE is basically you're starting to see a rerun of some of those same policies. And so it's completely unacceptable. And I think that the state has rightfully tried to do everything that it can and needs to continue to do everything it can to be that firewall to protect against the attacks on our immigrant communities, but also on reproductive health rights, on LGBTQ plus rights, on all of our most vulnerable. It almost feels like there's just a checklist and the federal government, Trump's just kind of going down the list and attacking every community that is on that list that is least equipped to stand up and defend itself. So it's a very important for especially a large state and diverse state like California to provide that defense when individuals aren't able to do that themselves. So I think we need to continue to, support and strengthen our sanctuary city law, our sanctuary state status, and also ensure that no state resources are being used to help with or coordinate with federal government on some of these efforts. And then also we're going to have to be ambitious and creative in figuring out how the state can best backfill a lot of the rollbacks to CalFresh, Medi-Cal, a lot of other programs that the federal government has either done through HR1 or is doing as a threat to California because of its status as a more progressive state.
Okay, and finally, name one big idea you have for reaching our goal of achieving carbon neutrality by 2045, or hopefully earlier. Why would your idea help and how would you get it passed?
Yes. Well, first, strongly supportive of that goal or of doing it sooner. I have kids that are 7, 5, 3 years old. So I'm hoping that the youngest one will be around in 100 years, right? And so I have a very strong personal commitment to making California a place that they can live in for that long. And I think we all know conceptually what we have to do, right? We have to conserve and really curtail the amount of greenhouse gases that we're emitting in our energy usage. We have to electrify as much as we can. We have to make sure that then the energy that we are using, if we're electrifying, is coming from clean energy sources. So I'm on the AVA Community Energy Board, which covers Alameda County and San Joaquin County now. And I think last year we were up to 96% clean energy, but we're trying to get up to 100%. And then we need to do all of that, not on the backs of workers and not at the expense of the most vulnerable communities that often shoulder the burden of a lot of these efforts, and do that as a holistic package. So we know what we need to do. So I think one big thing would be, again, my two big issues are really housing and climate change. And so really being more explicit in intertwining those two policies, right? And so a lot of that is some of the things we've talked about in terms of making sure housing elements and housing policies include efforts to center housing around transit and reduce vehicle miles traveled, right? The two biggest areas for greenhouse gases, transportation and buildings. So if we reduce the amount of transportation we need and we make sure that as much of the transportation that we do need is bikes, is public transit, right? In Union City, we've really focused on building out a lot of our housing around our BART station, because that's not just our BART station, but it's also our hub for our bus system and for Dumbarton Bridge access. and really making that a transit focused policy, and also focusing on the infrastructure that's required when you do build housing, right? Including climate resiliency. So I think that we are taking some of the right steps on that, but there's a lot more ambitious things that we can do to intertwine those two policies.
Okay, so now you have a 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you. Well, just wanted to thank you all again for giving me the opportunity, and all of the candidates an opportunity to speak with you. I know that there's many things you could be doing on a Saturday, so I really appreciate that this is the way you chose to spend it, and thank you for everything you do and your service. And I'm running for state senate because I feel a strong sense of duty to my family and to our community and to our state. And I feel like we can't sit back when we see we have friends and we have neighbors who are really struggling to afford to pay for groceries, to afford rent, cannot buy a home, can't sleep at night because they don't know if their kids are going to have as good of a life as they had growing up. So I think California can do better. I've dedicated my life to service as a city council member and a former vice mayor, as a Navy officer, as an attorney, and as a regional housing leader. And I'm ready to continue that service in the state senate, and want to fight for building housing, for reducing homelessness, for protecting renters, and for making sure that we have an environmentally sustainable future. And I really believe that if we all work together, that California really can be, a lot of these questions you asked, more affordable, that we can build more housing, that we can lead the climate future for the nation, not even just the state, that we can achieve universal healthcare, universal preschool, that we can stand up to Trump and protect our most vulnerable communities, and restore our safety net program. So I'm ready to serve, and I'm really proud of my endorsements from Congressmember Mike Honda and Assembly Member Bill Quirk, and the Alameda County firefighters, and more than 24 mayors and city council members and school board members. And I would be honored to earn your support as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for coming down, talking to us. All right. Thanks a lot. All right. And we have, hang in there, everybody. We have one more candidate to hear from. So, and yeah, and she's here. So. Sakakihara. Oh, not Sakakihara. Yeah. Carmen? Have a seat. Okay. You're comfortable. Here's your microphone. And as you know, we have 5 questions and 2.5 minutes per question to respond, as well as a 1-minute opening statement and a 2-minute closing statement. And oh, good, you're on camera. So, right, he has a timer there. All right, so you have a 1-minute opening statement.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me here. I think this is my first time coming to the Sunnyvale Democratic Club. My name is Carmen Montano. I'm the mayor of the city of Milpitas, actually the first woman mayor ever elected in the history of our city. So we have made some great strides. And I see Linda over there. Hello, hi. So I am running for state senate. I have been asked by some of my constituents in District 10. Many of them in the Indian community has asked me to run. And so this is one of the reasons why I'm running. And I feel that I can do a great job representing District 10. I was raised in Milpitas all my life since the 1960s when it was all agricultural. When we moved from the Central Valley, we moved to Union City. So I'm familiar with Union City. Then after Union City, we moved to Newark, and I'm familiar with Newark because I went to school there, elementary school there. And then when my parents sold their little farm in the Central Valley, they settled in Milpitas. So I've been in Milpitas all my life.
Okay, the first question. What do you think are the most pressing issues for Sunnyvale and Santa Clara County? And what do you intend to do about them? How do you plan to support your constituents in Sunnyvale and Santa Clara County?
Thank you for that question. I think the biggest, one of the biggest challenges is like any other city. The challenges are homelessness. It's becoming a huge problem where a lot of folks are they don't have a place over their, a shelter. And more the county is kind of pushing that responsibility onto cities. We, the cities, are not a social program. Well, that's not our mandate, but we do try to do whatever we can. In Milpitas, we have Dignity on Wheels. We contract with them, so we pay over $200,000 a year. So we do our little bit with whatever we can. We cannot provide, cannot afford housing. That is really way out of our reach, but we can provide other things like showers for the homeless. We provide food, and whenever the weather is extreme, we provide opening up our shelters, for example, the library shelter, and also the city hall. To me, that's one of the biggest problems, affordable housing. The state keeps saying there's a housing crisis, but in reality, it's an affordability crisis. People cannot afford, even people that are making high incomes just can't afford, especially our kids. People that have that make, they make a good living, but still the housing is so unreachable for many. And so to me, it's more of an affordability crisis. And I know some of our state legislators have been pushing for more housing. Yes, there's more housing. However, I think it was SB 79, there is no affordability clause in that mandate, in that bill. It's just, more affordable, more housing, but no, there's nothing. I don't see a clause in there that says more affordable housing. And we need to really address that to make it housing reachable for all sectors of society. So anyway, that's my comment on that.
Okay. Next question. California and the Bay Area continue to struggle with the homelessness crisis. What should the state do to address this problem? How should encampments be handled? And do you support housing first policies?
Well, first of all, there are many different types of homelessness. You have the mentally ill, you have the working poor, you have those that had just gotten released from prison when they closed down the prisons. So then you have the criminal element, and then you have people that are on disability. There's different types of, you cannot just one fit size all. One shoe fits, one size fits all, so you have to address those in different ways. I really truly believe that it's inhumane to see mentally ill people out in the streets. They don't know what they're doing. They're out there, they're walking in the middle of the street, and they're just, I really feel that the state needs to do more to help the mentally ill, because they're the ones that are the most vulnerable. We also need to provide assistance to our veterans. I've been speaking to a lot of veterans, and they're saying that the VA is not really helping them as they should be helping them. So we need to step it up and really help them. Also, the working poor. The working poor, right now the county is prioritizing the homeless, people that are substance abusers, people that are prostitution. Those are the ones that are getting priority. Why is this county not prioritizing the working poor? These are the people that are working, but they're struggling. They're struggling to find housing. We really need to focus on them so they won't become homeless. It just amazes me why we are not prioritizing the working poor. They even provide a sales or a tax. They pay taxes. And we just need to really start thinking about ways to support the working poor. So those are some of the biggest issues that I see with our unhoused.
Next question. California and the Bay Area continue to face a severe housing shortage. Hundreds of housing bills have been passed. Have these bills increased the supply of housing? Can we increase housing without killing neighborhood retail, especially in low opportunity areas?
Thank you for that question. Yes, that's the Senator Wiener has been pushing for a lot of housing. And again, it's a lot of housing, but not affordable housing. I've always believed that's, and in that bill, there is not a clause in there that addresses the affordability in that bill. And also, what some of those bills, what they do is they want to raise down or clear out a lot of the older shopping centers, which I feel is wrong, because a lot of the neighboring older neighborhoods, they depend on those retail stores, they depend on those grocery stores, and I really feel that that's not the solution to build. Then you become a bedroom community. There has to be a balance. There has to be a balance. If they were to provide, there is one over here that I see that's I think it's a good model. It's mixed use, things by cost, grocery outlet. You have apartments up on the top, and on the bottom you have retail. I think that's the way to go to build more of a balance. If they're going to be doing that, you need to build more mixed use housing.
Next question. What steps should the state be taking to protect vulnerable residents from federal depredations and overreach, including violations of civil liberties, unlawful ICE enforcement, and the federal government failing to appropriately fund disaster aid, food assistance, health insurance, and housing assistance?
Thank you. So the federal government has done a lot of overreach, and basically, just like the state has been taking away our local control, the federal government has been taking away our state control. I feel that we need to stay strong, use the law, because we make laws for our own protection. That's why we make laws, to protect us from ourselves, to protect us, to really make sure that we are protected. And I really feel that we need to be diligent and don't waver and fight the federal government, the current one, the current federal government does that. It's not, they're trying to take over our whole state and impose these ridiculous laws. And we just need to be steadfast, hold on to what we believe in, and use the laws. They're using laws against us. We need to stand firm and use laws against them. And the 14th Amendment guarantees due process. And we need to make sure that every individual, every citizen has the right to due process. And we need to make sure that we fight till the end.
And final question, name one big idea you have for reaching our goal of achieving carbon neutrality by 2045 or hopefully earlier. Why would your idea help, and how would you get it passed?
Yeah, one of the problems I see with, I used to serve on the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Board, and we did the, what was it called? I even forgot what they're called. Yeah, the bottom line is we made these initiatives to have people, convert their gas to electricity. But one of the problems that I see is the cost. The cost to do that puts a huge burden on the homeowner, huge burden. So I would propose to have some type of middle class to help fund that, so that way it doesn't become a burden, a financial burden to the homeowner. We need to create some type of a rebate or something similar to just I still have to figure out what it will be called, but something that will give some relief to the homeowner, to the middle class, so that way they can convert their appliances to clean, green energy, and it'll create jobs too. So that's what I would like to do.
All right, well, you have a 2-minute closing statement.
Okay. First, again, thank you for inviting me here. And as I mentioned, I've been asked to run for state senate, and I've been doing a lot of great things in Milpitas. I would also like to put those ideas at the state level. I have an open door policy in our city. So every Monday, I have an open door policy where people can come in and talk to me about anything, because some people want to meet face to face. And then also we've been bringing in some big companies in Milpitas. We have Rivian that just came in, and we also gave them, we did a little financial thing, like having them, give them a tax break the first year, and then after that, they'll be paying the rate. So you have to be creative in how you bring in businesses to the city. And it's the same thing with the state. Give these businesses incentives, so that way they can, we can have more businesses coming into our state. And I also have been making sure that our city is, it's balanced. We have a balanced budget. But however, just like a lot of cities, they have a structural deficit, and that we cannot be kicking the can down the road. We have to take the bull by the horns and make sure that we are fiscally responsible. And the same thing as a state level, we need to make sure that we are fiscally responsible. The state used to have a 75 billion surplus, and now we have a 13 billion deficit. So where did all that money go? As a state legislator, we need to make sure that the taxpayers' monies are being spent wisely and being prudent. And I'm also a pragmatic person. I'm a balanced thinker, and my whole goal is to help people, to make people's life a lot easier and better. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming down.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, there you go. All right, so now we'll be reconfiguring for discussion and vote. For this, we can only have members who are members of good standing to participate in the vote and discuss it. Let me just quickly go over a couple of the announcements. Most importantly, next Saturday is the protest, the No Kings protest on El Camino. It's El Camino from Palo Alto to Remington. We, as usual, the Dem Club will pick a spot to join together. Not that you have to be there. You can be anywhere up and down El Camino for the protest. It's from 2 to 4. Again, it's on El Camino. Now, there's a question of where we should be. I think Margaret suggested between Hollenbeck and Mary, which sounds like kind of a central location. There, unfortunately, this time of year, driving up and down there, there's almost no place that has shade. So hopefully the heat wave will be over. But, and it seemed to me that the most shady place was by El Pollo Loco, that shopping center there. Although the sidewalk is kind of narrow and there's ivy there, I'm not sure you can stand on the ivy. I don't know. It's a pretty short stretch, so we can pick a spot there and, do gather together. And we'll have the, the banner there. And so you see some of your neighbors and friends. So it should be a fun time. Let's see. I see Tim Weiss standing here, and he's interested in people collecting signatures for the transit measure. You want to quickly comment on that?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm actually encouraging you to walk and meet a lot of other people, not just each other, because we need a lot of signatures. We're running behind for making sure BART and Caltrain keep running. So if you'd like to be trained on how to gather signatures, I've got packets, I've got clipboard, I've got training. Margaret's now trained, Agnes Feith is trained. And we need a lot more people trained. And No Kings is a great way, easy pickings to get people to sign because they're interested in making change for the better in our area. So if you haven't signed yet, see me today. If you would like to help gather signatures, see me today. And I can also come to your house if you're online. Oops, for people online. I can visit you this week on my bike and train you and drop off petitions. Thank you.
Quickly.
So I spent a few hours 2 weeks ago gathering signatures, and it was really easy and people are friendly. So I gathered at the Mountain View Farmers Market, Caltrain Station area, and then also during commute hours at the Sunnyvale Caltrain Station. And most people are very positive and they'll sign.
Thanks, Charlie. And sure. Yeah, come on over and while we're doing this, the everybody who's voting should have a pin in order to vote, right? So we can vote online, and so if you don't have one, put a question in the chat, or see Crystal. Here, why don't you sit down and turn it on? Turn it on.
If you're not pissed off at the federal government, you will be after I tell you this. I have a friend who is a DACA recipient, and every 2 years she has to put in for a work permit. It expires today. She had sent in for it to be, what do we say? And usually she gets it back within 2 weeks. We have found out that the Department of Homeland Services is deliberately delaying all of these permits, these work permits. The outcome of it is first of all, her driver's license is attached to the work permit. And so her driver's license is now expired as of today. Her work permit has expired as of today, so she can't work. So she's out of a job. Fortunately, it's not her, it's across the country. The United States Senate, about 40 senators have signed a letter to Kristi Noem, who now is no longer there, and to another person with U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services to say, hey, what's going on here? They have about 14 questions. Why aren't you providing these work permits? It just is one of those things you just say, what is wrong with the federal government? What is wrong with this administration? This person has a master's degree, she has a job, and she no longer can work. And it's not just happening. She did talk to her human resources. They are supporting her as much as they can, but they also realize, hey, it's not just her, it is across the country. This is happening. She was brought here when she was 2. She didn't have any place to go.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Margaret. Oh, we're always glad to hear from the AD 26 Woman of the Year to speak to us. So.
There was a ceremony in Sacramento on Monday. I got 8 of my family to go. And it was really, really fun, very interesting. You're on the assembly floor. You walk down the aisle it was with Patrick Aarons. I felt like a bride. I was really out of it. And I don't know what he said, but I got a standing ovation, which totally threw me. But it's each assembly person chooses a Woman of the Year. This is Women's History Month. And it's a great honor. And Kepner, it was one a couple of years ago. Angelica Ramos was a Woman of the Year last year. I was really, really honored, to put it mildly. And yeah, and so I have this wonderful pin that I get to wear now that they gave out to each of us.
So responding to some of the questions, we're just reconfiguring and, you know, letting people move out of the room, but we are starting the discussion in just a minute here, and then we will be voting.
Yes, obviously, again, if you like have to leave or something, you can vote and then leave. But we ask that you not vote until you've heard out the discussion. And before we start the discussion, I would like to disclose to the club that so when we were soliciting responses from the candidates to the question,